Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just turning up this volume and trying to position this. I think my camera is just a little too close to my face. Well, thank you for joining me. I've
Thank you
been
for
so
having me.
excited to speak to you. I was just saying that we are talking about Return to Sender, which I have been seeing everywhere, and it's making me so happy. Like, I obviously reached out to you and was obsessed with it, and so I'm glad to see other people are reading it too. How have you found it?
It's been really overwhelming, but in a really great way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, why don't we just jump right in? I have heard that this is kind of the most dreaded part about these types of conversations, but can you give us a spoiler-free synopsis of Return to Sender?
Sure. Return to Sender is the story of Violet. She has just lost her father and has taken custody of her 14-year-old sister Phoebe. The two of them are pretty much drowning in grief, and a letter is returned to their apartment written by the man who used to live there. And Phoebe becomes obsessed with returning this lost love letter to the man who wrote it and the woman it was meant to find. And once they find the author, Dex, it kind of spirals into a road trip across the country to put the letter in the right hands. But Dex seems more interested in getting to know Violet than reconciling.
Which we're going to talk about because that can feel a little strange given the context of what they're on the way to do. But I will start with asking, where did you get the inspiration for the book?
Um, I actually saw a Tumblr post like a million years ago. It was a postcard that this guy he wrote like, "I'm drunk in Boston. This is the only address I know. Happy holidays." And my brain just kind of latched onto that, thinking that it would make a really great love story of these two people who had, at one point or another, lived in the same apartment. But it's it's super easy to tip into like creepy with that. But yeah, I kind of set the idea aside until I was dealing with my own grief, and the story just kind of unraveled itself.
You know, I think that you're onto something there about the creepiness. I feel like if it were reversed and it was like the man went to go seek out this lady that used to live in his house, you would be like, no, 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 I can't do this. But
Yeah.
it didn't fall into that category because it was not that. But as you mentioned, this is, it's a romance, but it also deals with sisterhood, grief, healing. Why did you want to explore those complex dynamics alongside a love story?
I think, those two things are so heavily intertwined. You can't have love without pain, and you can't have pain without love. So it was really important to me to have these things in the story and to show, this woman going through hell and finding someone who's going to see all of it and love her anyway.
That's so special. I love that. Well, speaking about Phoebe and Violet's relationship, I don't think it's that much of a spoiler because you learn it very early on, but and you might have already mentioned this, but their dad passes away, and so Violet becomes the only caregiver for her sister Phoebe. She doesn't regret that. I mean, she steps up. This is her sister. She loves her so much. But along the way, this time that has passed over a year, she kind of loses herself, loses her forward momentum, just living one day at a time. And even in like taking care of her sister, she kind of feels like she's failing everywhere. So why do you think it was important to you to have this kind of main character that's just in the trenches, trying to survive each day as it comes, not necessarily like just this glamorous, got it all together gal?
I've been in the trenches. My life was the trenches for a while. So it is really important to me to showcase that kind of thing and show that you can go through these things and it doesn't make you any less worthy of joy or love. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was really important to me.
I love that. Well, Dex, when we meet him, he is just like the epitome of a grumpy man. And you can kind of understand because they come to him and they're like, hey, we have your letter. We read it. Oops. And so he is grumpy, but he also is like this male main character that we need to learn to love. So, how did you approach writing him in this way that let him be his like grumpy, sometimes harsh self, but you also gave him room to be lovable, not only to Phoebe and Violet, but for the readers to fall in love with him?
Um, he started out grumpier. Like my agent was actually like, I think it's too much. I think we need to dial it back. So a lot of those tender moments in the beginning, like Dex giving Violet the Kleenex or offering Phoebe a ride home when she has a blister, those came later. And I think it's really important. It was really important to have this be in Violet's point of view because she is an optimist and she sees this as like, oh, he's not a douchebag. He's like he's reacting to something, but that doesn't mean that's who he is. And so I do think that it's easier to see the brighter spots of him through her point of view.
Was it hard for you to get that kind of feedback? To be told, like, hey, tone him down a bit?
No, no, not really. He like there were some moments where he bordered on mean, I think. And it as much as I love like an enemies to lovers, that wasn't what the story was supposed to be.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's just that you've got to find that balance of, hey, he's redeemable here. He's just not the worst. So this is primarily told on a road trip, which people might guess by the cover. Um, it's so much fun. Like you did the road trip like storyline just wonderfully. I had such a great time. They end up in fantastic places with hilarious situations and some serious situations. So how did you come up with these pit stops and did you have a favorite without like giving too much away?
Well, I used to like create these imaginary road trips for myself when I was younger, and I would like plan out every stop. So it was so much fun to figure out where they were going to stop and when. Some of the stops are inspired by actual places, and others are just completely made up. But my favorite was definitely the couples resort in the Poconos. That was actually my parents honeymooned in the Poconos, so that was a little shout out to them.
I'm glad that you said that because I was going to say that was also my favorite, but I didn't want to give too much away. But I thought it was so wild because, like, maybe a week before I picked this book up, I had been recommended a video, and it's like, are the Poconos getting a revival? And you've got like all these people suddenly, like all these people like in their 30s, late 20s, deciding like, hey, let's go check this out. And it's like so cringe because nothing has changed. And so reading that was such a delight. It made me laugh so much, and I could picture it so well. I thought you did great. And then there's another scene where it's like very close to the end of their journey and some crazy stuff happens. And I also really loved that one. But it was just all around a really fun road trip. And I immediately am like, should we do this? Should we do this exact road trip? Do you think you would? Would you ever think about doing it?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. That would be so fun.
Maybe you can somehow get your publisher to like chip in for that. Like, hey, it's just let's do this. What a dream, right?
Yeah.
So the chemistry and angst between Dex and Violet is palpable, and this is kind of what we touched on earlier because it's complicated. It feels almost forbidden because we know that, like, for better or worse, however it turns out, Dex is on the way to confront his former, like, love of his life. So, how did you navigate doing this in a way that you make like it makes the readers really want this to work out for them, but it doesn't turn them off?
I grew up in the time of love triangles. I feel like you couldn't watch anything without there being a love triangle. So I've seen them crash and burn, and I've seen some success with them. And I wanted to write it exactly as I would want to read it or watch it. And I do also think it's a more forgiving situation because Catalina is an ex as opposed to a current girlfriend. And you really don't know anything about her until the reader is right in front of her.
Yeah, but I do think that you did a good job of giving these vibes of like this is foreclosure. This is not like Dex is not necessarily going on this journey to try to reconcile anything that he may have lost. And so I think that for me, that helped along the way. Because immediately when I picked this up and I was like, how am I going to like, do I want him to get back with this ex? Do I want these two to fall in love? But it really helped knowing like, that's not necessarily his goal here. Like, he's not trying to reconcile or bring up old things, just kind of close the door on something. And I thought that that was done really well. Did you feel like that was something that you had to go through a lot of edits for, or did it kind of come naturally?
Probably a mix of both. I think maybe I was a little heavy-handed with it in the original draft because I was so worried about it seeming so forbidden. And I know that's not something that really bodes well with romance readers right now. Um, but yeah, we definitely scaled it back a little bit because we wanted it to have that the hint of like, oh, is this going to happen? At the same time that you're looking at Violet and thinking, okay, I want these two together. Who am I rooting for here?
Well, I don't think I spoiled anything because like it's the HEA that we know. So, but you did. I thought you did a really great job. I thought it was. I just at that point I couldn't figure out like how is what is this going to get to? Like when we get to the destination, how are we going to play? How are we going to let this play out? And I was so entertained and so intrigued the whole time. And I thought that you had such a unique job because you had three main characters essentially. And so Phoebe isn't like a kid that you see in other stories where she's like single parent and we know of the kid and the kid kind of pops in and out. Like Phoebe is very front and center. And so you had to write the dynamics of these relationships between sisters and then a stranger and the younger sister. Like you had to write all these different dynamics between individuals, but then collectively as a group. So how did you find writing that chemistry, and what do you think is a key to writing character chemistry, not just romantically?
Um, I used to write exclusively young adult, so I'm very familiar with like I mean you have to rely on pretty much everything except that like physical romantic chemistry. So I think that I really had a leg up when I started writing adult romance because I was so interested in the character dynamics and just character centered. Like they are just they're real to me while I'm writing this book and I want them to feel as real as possible. So I do think that writing and making that chemistry palpable is hard, but I do think that it was easier when thinking in terms of like the young adult genre and how that can differ.
Oh yeah, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that you had history in young adult, but yeah, I'm sure it does because you have to just come at it from a completely different dynamic. So that's really intriguing. Um, I think that Dex is such an interesting character because it's obviously told from Violet's point of view. So we're learning him through her eyes, and she can't put her finger on it, but her and Phoebe can both tell, like, he's a sad boy. There's something underneath it all that makes him sad. And obviously they're assuming it's this breakup that he has clearly not necessarily worked through because of this letter. So whether it's grieving a former relationship or grieving the loss of a parent, like, this book does deal with heavy topics while being wildly funny and incredibly sexy. So, how did you approach weaving all of this together and respecting the heaviness while keeping the story hopeful and just really enjoyable?
Um, I think, life is just, it's all like, it's all grief and absurdities over and over again. And those moments when you're going through something horrible and something so ridiculous happens, that's, I feel like, I don't know. Something that comes to mind is like when my dad died, on the ride to and from the hospital, we heard Just Dance by Lady Gaga. And we were like, this song came out 13 years ago. Why are we hearing it twice, like during this specific commute? And that moment just stuck in my head because it was just so absurd in the mix of this grief. And I really wanted to put that on paper somehow because it just, I don't know, it just feels so human.
Yeah, it's like that realization that life does not stop because you're going through something. And it's such a weird, like, you can be in the darkest day of your life and then someone next to you is just completely oblivious. And it's such a mind warp. And yeah, you gotta look for those funny moments. You've gotta look for the small pieces of joy for sure. What made you decide to write a single point of view versus multiple or dual?
I've always been a single point of view person. I've felt that when I try to write a dual point of view, it ends up in a sort of chasing two rabbits situation. I want to focus on one character and get it right as opposed to doing two and not being able to get as in depth as I could have. That's not to say that I wouldn't, because this was the first time that I really felt the urge to write from the love interest point of view. Dex is so withdrawn. Like through the first half of the book, you really don't know what he's thinking at all. And then once you find out why, it triggers all of these other questions. So at the end of the book, there is a chapter from his point of view because it was just, it felt necessary. So I would absolutely write a dual point of view at some point. It would just have to be the right characters. But for this specific story, I felt like Violet was the way to go.
Is that bonus scene in the physical book, or is that just the one that was sent out to pre-orders?
No, there's one in the physical book too.
I don't know how I missed that. Is it a different one?
It's a different one, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, look at me. I have something exciting to go look at. Because the people that pre-ordered were lucky enough to get sent a point of view from him as well, and that was really fun. When you say that you are primarily single POV, is that how you prefer to read as well? Like, do you find that you enjoy single POVs better than dual or multiple?
I don't think I have a preference really. I do love a single point of view. That's, I feel like the dual point of view has really like hit its stride in the last few years. So like when I was reading as a teenager, it was, there was never any of that. But yeah, I've come to really love it. People can do it so well. I wish I could do it that well.
Well, and I've talked to a lot of people who have done just single point of view, and I have appreciated this perspective of like, you want to completely not know what's going on in the other person's head, because that's what real relationships are like. Like, you don't get to know every single thought the person you're falling for is having. And so you are literally kind of just being like, do you like me? I like you. Like, what's going on here? And so I mean, I've definitely grown. I think like you, I grew up with just single point of view. And so when it became more popular, I was like, oh, I love dual point of view, but I've come back around to really appreciating both. And so it's always just so interesting to see who we're going to get and what they're going to think and what they're going to say. Um, what was, if you can give it without giving too much spoiler, what was a favorite scene of yours to write?
I mean, probably the Poconos watch party. It was actually, I think that was the first scene I came up with for the book. And it's so absurd. And other than the fact that it still makes me laugh to think about, it's the first moment when you get some bonding between Violet and Dex. And it's that first crack in his armor.
Well, and I couldn't help but think, like, is this really happening here? Is this like, does this go on? And I wanted to Google it, but then I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for what I might get if I Google that question. But yeah, it is such an entertaining. And I mean, it's not like super, super early in the book, but it's early on. And so, like, you really just kind of start knocking it out early in the book. And, like, it's just hilarious. It continues to be great. You did such an amazing job. Um, if readers could take away one thing from this book, what would you want it to be?
I've gotten a lot of messages talking about the message etched into Violet's door, at least tomorrow. And that makes me so happy that people are taking that away from it. This message that, at least you have tomorrow, there's always going to be a tomorrow. And I think the last paragraph of the book is one that has stuck with me the longest and the hardest, where she talks about, the miserable time loop of grief. And that's really what it feels like. And then it's never going to be an overnight thing, but in a matter of however many tomorrows, eventually it is going to be better. And yeah, if anyone takes that away from the book, that means the world to me.
Yeah, and healing is not linear. It is very complex, and it's a ride. Um, I mean, moving into a little bit more of a bright, joyful, you got selected for Book of the Month, and that was such a delight to see. Like, again, there it is. As soon as I read this book, I was like, I'm obsessed with this book. I want to see it everywhere. I messaged you right away. I've just been telling everyone, like, if anyone's asked me, like, recent 5-star read, what should I pick up? Like, this is the book I'm telling people to read. What did it feel like to get the call or email or whatever to be told, like, hey, you've gotten picked up for this?
Oh, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I think I stared at the wall for 10 minutes. My editor texted me and she was like, I just emailed you something. Go look at it. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled and in disbelief, and I'm still kind of in disbelief.
Well, I mean, how does that even happen? Do you have to put your name forward, or do you
I
know?
think the publishers pitch it, and if the people at Book of the Month like it, then they can pick it. I don't know, but I'm happy. I'm happy about it.
We're not asking questions. We're just accepting it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What is a piece of advice that you would give to a writer, aspiring author, um, anything? Something you wish you would know, something you learned while doing this process?
I mean, just keep going. I like this whole thing started, I was querying and I was about to give up. I had literally like withdrawn so many and I was ready to take a break when my agent requested it and then requested it again and offered. And like it really does take just one yes. So yeah, just keep going. It's if this is worthwhile to you, then you have to keep going. It'll end up being worthwhile.
Well, Return to Sender did just come out, so I'm not trying to rush anything or put pressure anywhere. But as an author, do you have plans for what's next?
I am working on my next book right now, out next year with Dial Press. It deepened the second revision, so there's not much I can say about it, but I will say there's a childhood friends, neighborly element, lots of commitment issues, extremely loosely inspired by a Julia Roberts rom-com from the 90s. It's big fun.
That's so exciting. Well, you know that you can send it to me if you need someone to look at it. But that's really thrilling. I think you're gonna just knock it out of the park, just like you did with this one. And again, I'm saying, everyone, please go read Return to Sender. It is available now. And Stephanie, I'm just so grateful that we got to have this chat. It's been so
Me
fun.
too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for joining me. And everyone, DM me when you read this because you're gonna love it. And thanks, Stephanie. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.